What is going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande, bringing you another edition of FA Sports Talk. And James, by the time everybody is watching this, baseball will already be underway. Finally, thankfully, the baseball season has arrived. You're going to be working on some of the MLB playbooks. You were doing the KBO playbooks while we were waiting for baseball to get going. So how excited are you that it's finally here?
Definitely excited. Definitely excited that the Yankees kick off the season. As you know, I dabble in Yankee fandom here. It's awesome to see Garrett Cole. Hopefully the game doesn't get rained out first and foremost, because there's rain in the forecast all night. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And by the time that this is up on the site, the Yankees will be like 4-0. Or 3-0, you know. But of course, I mean, John, like how many times have these streams started with everyone at Fantasy Alarm been like, yes, we're just counting down the days till sports, but like it is actually happening. Like
it is
baseball today, basketball in 7 days from today, so literally a week from Thursday, a week
next
from
Thursday.
Thursday. I mean, it's happening. Like everything is happening. It's like that Jonah Hill, going crazy. I mean, it's awesome. Just that it's all back, but like we can finally say it's finally back.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some like inter squad games of baseball sort of leading into this. We're now even getting some NBA sort of preseason games sort of going as well. We'll say getting everybody ready for the season. So yeah. Everything's coming back. Baseball, we have basketball, like you said, next Thursday, and NHL is starting up themselves. I think a week and a half away, 10 days away from hockey playoffs starting. So good to get sports back. But let's focus here on the MLB. Like I said, you're going to be doing the MLB DFS playbooks. In this shortened season, there's going to be a lot of sort of interesting strategy questions to go around on how we're going to go ahead and approach some of these MLB DFS contests, particularly around the pitching, because last season we were sort of fading top price pitching because they were just getting rocked every single start, and it didn't make sense to pay up for them. But now we're looking at starting pitching, and we're not getting starters that may go long enough in games to make it worth their price tag. So, as somebody who's going to be doing these playbooks, as somebody who's going to be making lineups, what do you think your approach is going to be? When it comes to the pitching position?
I think first and foremost, you need to get a list of every starter. Like we have the list on DraftKings, FanDuel, but like write it down for yourself. And then somewhere on that list, make a note of what they've pitched in these simulation games prior to, their opening starter, the first couple starts. Also, if their managers have come out and said, hey, he's going to throw 70 pitches today, or he's going to throw, he only got 50 in his last simulation, we're not going to go much further than that. Those are guys that we're not going to deploy because, let's face it, like, John, if you're if we're paying like $9K for a guy who's going to throw 70 pitches, I'm not interested in that at all, because if he struggles, that's getting us 3 innings, even if there's no earned runs. On DraftKings, where there's a lot of negative points. I'm also going to stay away from cash games, I think, in the beginning of the year. I think cash games are going to be a nightmare in the beginning of the year, just based on the fact that we don't know how long these pitchers are going to go and how quick the hooks are going to be. Like Clayton Kershaw is on the mound tonight, and when everyone watches this, we'll know how the result is. But he's $7,700 on DraftKings. He's thrown 90 pitches in each simulation. But we know Dave Roberts has a quick hook in August of a 162-game season. I can't imagine how quick the hook is going to be for Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, for everyone in that staff going forward. So I think just getting a gauge on the pitch counts, getting a gauge on the managers and how they use their bullpens and how they've used their bullpens in the past, I think is pretty key. So I think this year, more than ever, we're going to have to do a little extra research, because if we don't, we're going to be behind the 8 ball. And I really think you need to do the extra work, writing stuff down. I know FA Nation's own Cheyenne Bailey writes down in a notepad, handwrites, and then sends us the DFS slate. And I'm like, what am I looking at? But it is the perfect strategy for this year. We really, really need to pay attention to what managers are doing early on.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of strategies develop. As you said, if there's a starter that's going to go, 60 pitches, we'll say the Rays, for example, because they're notorious for, using starters and openers and piggyback guys. Would you venture, on DraftKings, unclick that, remove non-probable starters and maybe find like a $4,000 middle reliever that you might think goes 3 innings, something like that? Would that ever appeal to you in a strategy if you're looking to spend down, or would you just rather stick with the guys, in those who are getting the starts? Because, if a starter's not going to go 5, that means that those win bonuses could be going to some of these middle relievers who are in the game if the team takes the lead at that point, and you'll get the bonus that way.
And that's kind of why I think what you brought up is a great point on why I'm not playing cash games, because we're not guaranteed to win. But I think if the only situation I would do that is if we were like told, hey, Kevin Cash came out and said, following Charlie Morton is going to be so-and-so. And we like had a concrete plan, because we could play somebody and their starter, everything goes wrong and they had to maneuver that plan, and then we don't even get that guy in a 3-inning situation, or we get him earlier than we like and now he doesn't register in the 5th inning. So we'd have to have a really concrete plan, like our starter's going to go 3 innings followed by this guy who we want to stretch out for 3 or 4 innings. In that situation, sure, because we're going to get that, like you said, he's going to be $4,000, and then we're going to be able to pay up for Bellinger and Acuna in one slate. But if there is no plan, or if there is no and we don't even have time in the season to let that develop. There's only 60 games. So usually we'd be like, all right, well, we're a third through the season. We know that so-and-so follows this starter, or so-and-so is there. We don't know that. They have expanded rosters for a reason. They could literally deploy whoever they want in any situation. So I don't think I'll be going that route unless there's concrete evidence that player X will be following player Z for 3 to 4 innings.
Which is something that we were at least able to predict a little bit last year. Like, you could watch a guy, all right, whenever this person was in the game, they went X, and then the guy who followed them, at least in Tampa's situation, was usually pretty, they had sort of a set rotation of piggybackers. So, no, but I agree with you again. Without having that, actual information, will be pretty difficult to just go ahead and rely on some of those guys. But you're looking, again, at some of the overall value that you see with some of these middle reliever guys because of, their lack of ability to start a game. But, if these starters aren't going to get wins, you may be looking at different strategies this season overall. How about when it comes to hitting? I mean, again, we're looking at Friday slate. You're going to be on the playbook, for Friday. When this airs, it'll probably already be over, I'm assuming. So, where are we with spending up on hitting? I mean, this is a year where, we're going to have every team with a DH. Are you still, has your strategy changed at all in terms of how you approach lineup building when it comes to hitters, or are you just still going with the stack and attack approach?
I mean, I definitely think the stack and attack approach is viable always, because, if your offense scores 15 runs, you're in a pretty good spot. I think hitting is going to be what, obviously pitching is matters, but I mean, we've seen all these simulation games. Offense has been aplenty. Max Scherzer has been getting lit. We saw Aaron Judge hit 3 home runs in 2 days. We saw Luis Robert hit 9 home runs in the last 3 days. I think spending up on hitting is going to be a really good approach the entire season, because at least the beginning stages where pitchers are, I mean, I feel like pitching is more rhythmic than hitting, because you're trying to find the grip. You're trying to find you're trying to figure out
location,
if you're right. Dude, look, right. And talk about elite hitters aren't going to miss pitches down the middle. And if you're talking like Christian Yelich, there's a reason why Christian Yelich is being picked to win an MVP in 60 games, because he can light it up for 20 home runs in 60 games, and then that's 1/3 of the games, and you're likely to get a lot of DFS points out of him. So I think I'm going to be spending on hitting a lot, whether that means, multiple players from one team. Like if Colorado's home, they're not opening day, they're in Texas. But hey, why not spend up on multiple really expensive Colorado hitters on opening day in Texas? I know it's a new ballpark, but I mean, I think really, really focusing on spending up and finding the pitchers that are cheaper and still having a full complement of pitches are going to be a really solid pairing, at least early on when these rosters are expanded and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it seems like normally we always talk about attacking early DFS pricing because there's always a lot of values, but I've been looking at some of these prices, and I am not seeing a lot of value at hitting. So we'll say DraftKings and FanDuel are in mid-season pricing form already. There's not a lot of guys where I've like peaked and I was like, oh, this guy is under $4,000. That's a mistake. Throw him in my lineup every day until they adjust. I haven't really come across that quite yet, but I'm sure as the season gets going, it'll be more so how quickly they can adjust to guys that get off to those hot starts than what their initial pricing is. So it'll be interesting. We're excited to get MLB DFS back in our lives. Be more excited when NBA DFS gets back in our lives as well, a sport that you and I absolutely love. No new real stories coming out of the bubble per se. We got news that Russell Westbrook has passed his COVID tests. We've seen some looks at the NBA courts and bubbles, and those things look, pretty sick. We've got them sort of building out the NBA life. It seems like a video game style things they're putting in that a bubble. What about you, James? Any like key stories for you that's coming out of the NBA bubble?
Yeah, I was gonna actually ask you, I mean, the story of the Nuggets, I think the story on Wednesday was the Nuggets because the scrimmages started, and yes, the Nuggets have some players that are still dealing with COVID, that are away from the team, that are coming back, but you saw the starting lineup, right? They started your favorite player in the NBA at point guard, 7 foot Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic. Jeremy Grant was their starting shooting guard. Bol was their starting small forward, who is 7'2". Paul Millsap is 6'8", and Mason Plumlee is 6'11". They dominated, and Bol specifically dominated.
Yeah, he's a stretch big. He's what we all wanted Thon Maker to be.
Right. I think that is the best way to describe it. Now I guess my question, could you see a scenario where Denver implements this lineup they're probably, let's face it, they're not going to implement this in the playoffs, right? But they could.
If it works.
Do you think that they're going to experiment with it in an actual game? Because in a week, the games actually start. Could you see this lineup working, because Paul Millsap is 6'8" and was the smallest player on the floor, but who is he going to guard? I mean, is he going to guard Russell Westbrook? Is he going to guard James Harden?
This is the problem, right? One, Bol is not going to see more than 5 actual minutes.
I don't know. If he lights it up
there's no way his conditioning is up to par. He's coming off major foot surgery as a guy who's 8 feet tall. There's no way that why wasn't Michael Porter Jr. part of that rotation? That's what I want to know. Why is he getting sat behind? But I could see them going big. I mean, they have the guys to do it, like you said. And, if Houston's going to go out there with their tallest guy being 6'5", and you throw out a lineup where your shortest guy is 6'9", you're going to be protecting the rim. You're going to be disrupting the perimeter. There's going to be a lot of long arms on those, James Harden 3/4 court threes that he's going to take, his hop, not travel threes that he's going to shoot. So, I don't know, but I can't imagine that's a lineup that they're really going to throw out there. If they honestly start Nikola Jokic at point guard, I'm still not playing. Okay? I refuse to believe that him being out there as a point forward is going to increase his value. Because he already gets assists, and he already, the
offense runs through him already.
Yeah, the offense already runs through him. This isn't changing much. He just isn't consistent enough. He doesn't score enough half the time. You'll look at a game of 2 shots through the first half. You're like, what is going on? So no, I'm not buying into it unless Jamal Murray's out. If Jamal Murray's out, I'll believe it a little more because those shots will at least be available. But other than that, no, I'm not buying in. to what the Nuggets did. I'm happy that they're getting, experimenting and, being fun with everything in there, but I can't trust that's honestly a lineup rotation that they're going to have.
I mean, this is definitely the one time to do it, right? You're in a scrimmage. One more question. Let's get a final answer from both of us. This is NBA bubble. The 8th seed. I think the hottest topic of the bubble is probably going to be who wins the 8th seed, right? Because Zion's away from the team, getting tested apparently every single day. I don't know how he gets tested every day. I would still like to know that. Portland has Yusuf Nurkic back, and I don't know if you saw the clip from today. Yusuf Nurkic looked pretty good. He scored his first bucket in their scrimmage against.
As long as his leg's not in two pieces, I'm sure he's a good player.
What do you think the outcome of the 8th seed is? If you had a final answer today, let's face it. Phoenix, San Antonio need a miracle, right? They need a miracle, and Sacramento, and because everyone on Sacramento has COVID or is injured.
Bagley got hurt again. So sad. Right. So sad.
Yeah, we are definitely Marvin Bagley truthers until the end, but man, it has been a rough patch. What is your final answer on who gets the 8th seed? Memphis is currently a pretty sizable Vegas.
Well, they have the lead there. Right. I mean, they got 3.5 games.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm still. It's tough.
What are you hopeful for, and what do you think actually happens?
So, I mean, I obviously wanted the Pelicans to jump in there because I like the idea of the Lakers and the Pelicans meeting up. 3.5 games, though. I mean, the Grizzlies kind of have a tough schedule. I can see Portland hopping them. I mean, again, they have, of the teams that are available, I'd say they have the best established star by far, obviously, in Dame Lillard. So, 3.5 games, though. Yeah.
They have a tough bubble schedule. If you look at Portland's bubble schedule, it is definitely tough, and Adam Ronis brought that up yesterday on the live stream. I don't think it scares me off enough, though. We're getting a full complement of players on Portland that made the Western Conference Finals last year, so even if it is a tough roster, should the schedule – everyone has a tough schedule. It's the best 22 teams in the NBA left.
Yeah, I guess – I think I would still give the 3.5 game edge to the Grizzlies. I still think that's a large. It's kind of a large number to. This feels like to overcome in the games that are remaining for them.
They only play once, by the way, and it's their first game each. So let's play out the scenario. If Portland beats Memphis that Friday, it's down to 2.5. If Memphis wins, it's 4.5. Would you say that the momentum is completely shifted depending on the winner of that game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that's easy to say. If Portland wins that opening game, they get it to 2.5. The momentum's certainly on their side to overcome the 2.5 game deficit. If they lose and it's 4.5 again, it's such a tougher part. I usually tend to lean teams that have the leads in these scenarios. With the 3.5 games in hand. So. I'm probably still going to go Memphis, but I mean Portland for sure, has the talent to overtake.
So, oh my gosh, Portland starts with Memphis in this the bubble, and then they go Boston, Houston, Denver, Clippers.
Right.
They can lose all those games.
They can lose all those games.
It's brutal. I think my heart also – I actually think I want the Portland Trailblazers to make it, but I think I took them yesterday on the live stream at plus 450. If I were to make a bet, I said I think Portland 450, but I'm starting to – I mean, Memphis has Portland, San Antonio, New Orleans to start. That seems a little easier, huh?
I mean, I would like to – see Memphis not make it as a Celtics fan with a Celtics team that holds the Memphis draft pick.
Right.
But I don't think I think that's gonna end up playing out that way.
Okay. I kind of agree. I still am holding out hope for Portland, but that schedule is just God, that was horrifying.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, James, let's finish this stream up here with a topic that you and I both enjoy. You're obviously a huge boxing fan. You cover boxing on Wager Alarm with your best bets. You've been pleading now for which seems like a year with DraftKings to announce DFS boxing. I grew up watching a lot of boxing as well. Not so much the new generation sort of boxing, but, basically from the initial Klitschko era prior to that, right. I watched a lot of boxing. And now we get news that Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr., both over 50 years old, will be stepping into the ring for an 8-round exhibition sort of matchup. My question to you is Roy Jones Jr. A crazy man for doing this? Because he hasn't really looked that good in a while. Again, he's over 50 at this point. And now you're stepping into a ring with a guy in Mike Tyson who claims something has snapped back in him and he looks like an absolute animal in these training videos. So what's your take here on this Tyson fight? And, you keep on tweeting that there are some awesome boxing fights coming up. So tell us what we should be looking forward to, in the future.
So, Roy Jones is definitely crazy, and he's always been crazy. That has never changed. He's also never, ever backed down from a fight. He did, 20 years ago, fight for a heavyweight championship, and he won against a guy who was, 30 pounds heavier. Yeah. Obviously, it wasn't Mike Tyson. That's, a complete different story. So, yeah, he's crazy. I will say he has more on his side considering he fought more recently.
I was going to say, he fought more recently, yeah.
He fought in 2018. Mike Tyson hasn't fought since 2005. Now, Mike Tyson also, like you said, he looks like a Greek sculpture cut out suddenly at 54 years old. But, Mike Tyson is a very active weed smoker. I don't know how the lungs are going to hold up over 8 rounds. Now, will this fight even last 8 rounds? We're talking about Roy Jones, who has almost 50 KOs, and we're talking about Mike Tyson, who has 44 KOs. We don't know if there's going to be headgear. I can't imagine people over 50 don't want to wear headgear because, we could see
see Mike Tyson wearing headgear.
I'm nervous because they, look, you're an MMA fan, right? Yeah. I also have grown into liking MMA, and I love boxing, and you have loved boxing before. These are vicious sports, and we're talking about 2 guys who have taken punishment, and they're over 50. Imagine getting hit by Mike Tyson, who is going to be 40 pounds heavier, most likely, than you, because Roy Jones has never fought over 200 pounds, and Mike Tyson, all he does is fight in the heavyweight division. I think that's scary if I'm Roy Jones, but again, crazy. I think Tyson's going to knock him the hell out, if we're being honest.
Doesn't it feel like it's setting up that way? It's just setting up for, and I'm not saying this is going to spark a George Foreman-esque comeback for Mike Tyson who won Foreman won the title, was 46 or 48 or something like that. Yep. Tyson's 8 years older than that. It's insane to think, but doesn't it also seem like if there was ever someone that could do it, it would be a guy as dominant as Tyson used to be? We always talk about the greats, and if the greats could ever, if there was anybody that could ever do it, it would be X, right? If there was ever, if there was ever an NBA player that at 50 that could come out of retirement and score 20, it'd be Jordan, right? Or if there was ever a guy at 50 that could come out of retirement and contend, could it be Tyson? I don't know. The heavyweight division is a lot different now than it was back then. These guys are absolute monsters that are in this heavyweight division now, but maybe Tyson drops down to lightweight or something like that and fights. Who knows?
It all depends on what he's weighing, right? Like you said, right. If he's in, which I don't think he's in below 200. Mike Tyson still looks huge, but he's only 5'10", so I don't think it would be insane to think that he could get to cruiserweight, 190-ish. I don't think he wants to fight the heavyweights, because if he wants to ever fight for a title, Tyson Fury is 280 pounds, dude. It's like the Deontay Wilder thing. Once Tyson Fury figured out that he can smother Deontay Wilder, who fights kind of at that Tyson weight, 220, 230, he has no chance. Tyson Fury's just going to smother him.
Tyson apparently weighs 220 pounds right now. That's what reports are.
that is like a Deontay Wilder weight. Deontay Wilder weighed as his heaviest he's weighed, and he almost weighed like 240 against Fury, and he was still like 40 pounds lighter than Tyson Fury. I think 220 is a good weight for Tyson because that's what he's basically fought at for. I mean, if you go through his box rec, he fought at like in the 230s later in his career, but I just don't think he cared. Like he just was at the tail end of his career. Right, tail end of his career. He lost a bunch. It's scary. But I think there is, like you said, there is a light at the end of the tunnel for boxing. I mean, let's face it, this summertime series that Top Rank put on was not very exciting. There wasn't a lot of buzz. It was very low rated on television. And I don't think it's their fault because I think boxing with all their prize fighters and all their promoters, they are guaranteed money and they didn't want to fight for less than what they're guaranteed. So I can't fault a guy for not wanting to get paid. So the fights weren't great. The last card actually peaked at almost 500K viewers this past Tuesday, which, is great. Almost 500K puts it near the top of the viewership on a nightly basis. But, man, there are a lot of really good fights in August. There are 18 undefeated fighters, 9 world champions, 8 world championship fights. We have a doubleheader of the Charlo brothers who both hold titles. Last time they fought a doubleheader, one of the Charlos actually lost his title.
Do they both hold titles of the same weight class, just different organizations?
No, different weight classes. One's 154 and one's middleweight at 160. The one at 160 is the undefeated fighter. He's going up against Sergey Derevyanchenko, who just lost in absolute war to Gennady Golovkin or Triple G. That's going to be really exciting. And then Jermell Charlo, who is the 154 champion, he just won his belt back, fights Jason Rosario, who just won the title. And that's to unify the division. I mean, there's a lot of really exciting fights. Gervonta Tank Davis, who is one of the more up-and-comers, or has been one of the up-and-comers in boxing for the last few years. He's around 25 years old, fights Leo Santa Cruz. They're actually fighting at 130, but they're fighting for each other's belts. Santa Cruz holds the belt at 135, and Davis holds it at 130, and they're fighting for both of them. So that's fun. David Benavidez, who just came out on ESPN's top 25, under 25, number 2. He is elite. He fights at 175. He's an elite, or 168. He's an elite fighter. He's August 15th. There is a lot of really exciting things happening in boxing. Some of those fights are pay-per-view, which we haven't seen in the summer series. I don't know how they're going to do. We saw the Masvidal pay-per-view, and Stomper McStomperson over there hit 1.3 million buys or whatever it was. Do I think it's going to do that? Those numbers, no. MMA is what's in compared to boxing. But I think those can be really, really high-profile fights that people should tune into. And maybe something that gets DraftKings and FanDuel's creative juices flowing, because there's actually interesting fights. And on the undercards, there's interesting fights. It's not just like, one fight and like it was for Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. No one cared about the rest of that.
I literally fell asleep during that the fight before. Woke up to the guy getting knocked out, which I think you said would happen, and then woke up and watched the Wilder and Fury fight. So yeah, that's true.
And there's a difference. There's a difference between MMA, right? Because MMA puts out an entire product.
They have 13 fights, almost all of them worth watching.
I think we saw Cowboy headline against McGregor, and then the next time he came out, he was on the prelims.
Yeah.
That's how deep MMA cards get, and that's what boxing needs to do, and that's what they're kind of doing with this Showtime series. And I think it's really exciting. There's also a heavyweight bout between Dillian White and Alexander Povetkin, not hosted by Showtime. That's Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Boxing. That's going to be a pay-per-view fight, and it's going to be a huge hit in Britain since Dillian White is a big commodity over there, and he's the number 1 ranked heavyweight that's not a champion in one of the divisions. I think WBC, there's like 93.
Yeah,
another problem with boxing.
That is the problem with boxing right there.
Yep.
Is that there is a like WBO, WBC, WBA, IBF, IBO, IBA, and it's like, who is the champion?
Right.
What is and who is considered the linear champion right now? Is it Fury? Is Fury considered like the linear heavyweight champion, like of the initial heavyweight division?
So like the WBC belt reigns supreme. So that's what so Tyson Fury is the linear and WBC, and Anthony Joshua is the unified champ. He holds the other 3 belts. So Fury's holds the most weight in the WBC, but Joshua has more. He has 3 actual titles. He has the WBO, the IBF, and it is horrifying to like try to sort through who are the champions where. But that's why everyone screams about these promoters making championship fights between other champions, because there needs to be more unifications. There needs to be one champion. When one champion goes to fight another, now one guy just has all the belts, right? And then that just continues. The cycle just continues. We're just gonna fight for this guy.
That's why like Floyd Mayweather needed all of his entourage, because they each had to carry one of the belts he held.
Usually Justin Bieber. Usually
Justin Bieber, right?
And 50 Cent before they had their falling out and he made fun of
exactly. I would just rather it be one belt, which is why I feel like and this has been around for a while, so I can't say like this is why I lost interest in boxing, but the boxing itself as a sport just sort of lost me with the lack of seeming like organization that they had with everything that was going on. So, but it's good. Again, I tuned into some of those boxing fights that were going on because again, I'm desperate for sports and I do enjoy boxing as a whole. So excited to see some of these other fights coming up, and I'm always tuned into any of the big pay-per-views that boxing puts out. Again, it's the other hard part for those is like they kick off at like midnight Eastern. And you're like, why am I watching a boxing fight at midnight Eastern? So
the good thing about these, they're actually going to be in Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. So we have a chance.
I can even go there, right down the street.
True, and we have a chance of them. Well, I don't think they'll be hosting live fans, but you could stare at it where they're fighting.
The casino's open, so yeah.
True. Hey, yeah, I guess, but like maybe they'll start earlier because it's not in Las Vegas. You're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, saying there's a chance. So, all right. Well, I mean, that's good recap of all boxing that we have on here. James, it is time for us to go here. Any final thoughts you want to say to the people?
The New York Yankees will be the World Series champions at the end of the 2020 season. Sorry, John. I
have no arguments there. The Red Sox are absolute dumpster fire at the moment. So I'm not even sure after Nathan Eovaldi who pitches for our team. So. Not the Red Sox. Won't be the Red Sox here. But all right, for Grande, for myself, we'll catch you guys next time.